How's it going, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to be explaining why I personally choose to follow a ketogenic protocol and have been following ketogenic protocols as a competitive athlete, training multiple times a day, 5, sometimes 7 days a week, since 2018, December of 2018, okay? So there's a lot of reasons why, okay? The major one is that my chronic insomnia completely vanished once I went full on into a zero carb carnivore ketogenic type diet. I have more energy. I have virtually zero energy crashes. My energy is consistent throughout the day. I have no ebbs and flows of energy. I used to get this debilitating post-workout fatigue after hard workouts all the time. And this happened whether I was fasted or not, when I was eating a lot of carbs. I used to always just feel very, very sick. And maybe a big part of that is that I had trouble sleeping. I had lifelong insomnia, by the way. But I think, because I noticed after every time I consume carbohydrates, I just always had this low-grade, these mood disturbances. Always feeling a physical sense of irritation in the background, all day long. And my thoughts were always rational, generally optimistic, but I had this physical sensation of annoyance and stress always. And when I went keto, okay, and it was really a zero carb carnivore style diet supplemented with coconut oil and MCT oil, actually. After about 3 days, I immediately noticed I felt healthy, for the first time in a long time, healthy. I used to think I knew what healthy felt like, but when I went on this ketogenic protocol for the first time, I knew for sure what healthy felt like. A lot of people who are just kind of following their normal diet or whatever it is, even if they think it's healthy, I think a lot of people assume that they are eating healthy or that they are feeling healthy. But you generally don't really know what something feels like until you've really experienced it for the first time. And that was kind of like what keto actually felt like. It was this new level of health that I never knew existed, but I always knew I wanted to achieve in the background. A state of inner peace, calmness, feeling completely physically, mentally, and emotionally content with, the present moment in life as it is, but having this pleasant kind of motivation and focus to make life better. Okay, that's what I would explain it. Okay, whereas before I used to always it was hard for me to focus for a long time. My mind goes 1,000 thoughts a second, possibly because, I had a 149 IQ in the second grade. I don't know, but it felt like my mind was always on 1,000 horsepower. And going keto, my intelligence was still there, obviously, but suddenly my thoughts were no longer this constant entanglement of yarn. That I had to always untangle, and then as soon as I stopped untangling the thoughts, they would tangle again. Suddenly I could just kind of see right through the tornado of thoughts in my mind at all times. So basically, symptoms of, I guess, ADHD or just crazy mental chatter. Productive mental chatter on philosophy and science, but just too many thoughts in my mind all at the same time, literally 5 different thought streams all at once. Suddenly, we're kind of more in rows rather than all mixed together, if that makes sense. So you can think of a library of books with aisles of books, right? On carbs, my library of books and thoughts and intelligence, the subjects were all entangled all into one pile. Or actually, it's more like the books are being thrown around the freaking library from all the different subjects. And I was always walking around with this library of different subjects of books being thrown around. And I'm like, oh shoot, like, I got to solve my relationship issues, and I got to figure out, what's wrong with my strength program. And I got to like figure out how to like more effectively like make YouTube videos. And I got to, figure out a more effective way of like managing my finances. And at the same time, like my health isn't that great. So I got to I got to find the next biohack or whatever. And my health was okay back then, but I had some issues still. Anyway, all of these things were always in my mind at once, right? And so, and it wasn't always that way, but like a lot of the time, like I would say like 65% of my day made me, right? There were very specific things like, anyway, so, when I went keto, those books that were always flying around my library from different subjects in different areas of my life. Now the book for the science section, the books in the science section were neatly placed in a row. The books for the relationship help section were neatly placed in a row. The books for the strength training section were in one book. And then the books for the financial improvement section were in one row. And so now I'm like, everything is so clear. And it's like if I have a problem in life, it doesn't stress me and overwhelm me anymore. Because I'm just like, okay, well, let's reflect on it. Here's these thoughts that I can pull from. And so I was able to more calmly and with better focus on one stream of thought at a time. And that shit's overwhelming, by the way. Like, since I first experienced that on keto, after about a year or two, I started experimenting with long stretches of higher carb diets. I also experimented with targeted ketosis and weakened ketosis as well. Not weakened ketosis, but like basically eating one carb day on the weekend when I go out with friends, right? Like to try to like refuel or whatever. And so I tried all sorts of different carb experiments since then so that I could really figure out, is it the ketosis that's improving my mind? Because I had thought maybe it was these herbs I was taking, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And I'm always that way. I when I find something like this and I think it's the panacea, I am heavily skeptical. I'm like, oh shit, there's let's test it out. And it's very hard for me to fully trust that, oh my God, this is as great as I say it is. The same thing goes with certain herbs that I talk about on my channel. So anyway, insomnia completely resolved. My overwhelming thoughts resolved pretty substantially. My physical health resolved. I felt like back then I had, like when I was eating high carb, I had all this inflammation in my body all the time, like a constant feeling of like physical stress, which I would say is probably on a molecular level a high amount of reactive oxygen species floating around. And I would recommend you read this book for a deeper explanation of what I'm talking about as far as the anti-inflammatory benefits of ketones and reactive oxygen species and stuff like that. So as an athlete, some things I've noticed. So my first competition that I did on a carnivore keto diet, like I took a break from competing in kickboxing. And so my first match was November of 2019. It was just about exactly 11 months after starting ketosis, really, okay, a ketogenic protocol. And I was in a Muay Thai bout, and I remember I was kind of nervous. So I had my girlfriend at the time, who was an amazing girl, by the way. We were together for 4 years, and I got her on the ketogenic diet, and she got in the best health and weight of her life, eating mostly keto. She used to love all the keto snacks and stuff, but she got her blood tests and stuff and found that her triglycerides were like rock bottom, and her HDL and LDL levels were in amazingly perfect range. Anyway, bought me a bunch of pepperoni for the sodium content and yerba mate, like without any sugar. So anyway, I competed in Muay Thai on the carnivore diet for the first time, and I just remember my opponent was consuming apples like throughout the day, and I don't even remember if I actually ate the pepperoni or not. I think I was mostly fasted, but I think I was snacking on the pepperoni. And I remember, even though my opponent was on a carb-based diet and he was eating like sugar, like basically leading up in the fight, and I was eating pepperoni, if anything, mostly just salt, protein, and fat. I remember, like, so there's videos on YouTube. The whole fight, I was just bouncing around. I was dodging his punches. I was in and out, jumping around, and he was like 6'4", with a significant reach advantage. And I'm only like 5'10", 5'11". And I was just hopping around, and I was able to enter and remove and stuff. And the only time he really got anything on me was like the whole fight. He was just standing in place. He looked like he had no energy, and I was just hopping around. I had the most energy ever. I did this crazy spinning back fist tornado helicopter kick thing. A lot of people commented on. It's on my YouTube somewhere. You could clearly tell that having no dietary carbs in my diet was not holding me back. I had way more explosive, hopping type energy than that guy did. Now, I was tired at the end for sure, but I was expending way more energy than my opponent, yet I was on a zero carb diet. So anyway, that was my first competition on ketosis. It was in really a Muay Thai fight, but me and my opponent agreed not to do clinching or knees or elbows, just because he was training with a pro boxer and didn't really train Muay Thai, and I just wanted to kind of like get my, test out my diet really. So anyway, that was my first competition. It was about a year after starting ketosis, and I had no problems at all. And after that, me and my girlfriend and my family and my friends, we went to a buffet, and I just had all-you-can-eat ribs and steak and stuff like that. And we played a bunch of video games afterwards together. And I felt great, as long as I kept my sodium intake up and my protein and whatnot. So in addition to that, my first month of ketosis, what was amazing, so I had already talked about how I had amazing focus boosting benefits. My sleep and insomnia dramatically improved. Like, I almost want to cry thinking about this, because most of my life I just felt sick. And I was diagnosed with extreme mental disorder when I was a child. And pretty much and I was in and out of mental hospitals when I was a kid, actually. Not that I needed keto to like overcome that, because I overcame those issues long before I ever found keto, like 10 years before actually. But anyway, the other thing is, when I started this keto carnivore type diet in 2018, immediately after about 7 days, it took me really about 4 days to get over the keto flu. The first 4 days, I think I felt kind of, I lost some of my strength, a little bit weak and stuff like that. But to be honest, I felt so crappy before that. I didn't really feel like I was feeling worse. I think I was feeling better because I removed the carbohydrates that were causing ups and downs in energy. But I do remember I felt kind of weak for the first 4 days, okay? After the first 4 days, the insomnia and all that crap like completely vanished, and I was noticing I could suddenly sleep out of nowhere. And I slept good, amazing. Suddenly I had no problem getting to sleep and staying asleep, and I woke up feeling amazing all the time. And I noticed I only needed like 4 hours of sleep to feel good. So my sleep quality dramatically improved, but also my well-being and the amount of like the feeling of being rested improved as well. And it took about 7 days for my athletic performance to get a jolt. And so, a little side note, and I've talked about this many times before, but before I started keto, like I had injured my hip really bad, and the doctor told me it was going to take 3 months for me to be able to lift weights again. And I remember I was doing a deload that time, and I had started to kind of lighten my weights and really focus on form for a while. And that was during the keto transition period. After about 7 days, my hip pain completely vanished. And I think that was because I removed all the plant foods, to be honest. I feel like because I had like a 9 day difference. All of my pain, or it's probably because of the ketones, really. I think it was because of the ketones that my pain improved. I don't know. Yeah, probably, because I don't get aches and pains these days unless I start eating a really high carb diet. And I'll explain the mechanisms here in a bit. But anyway, my hip pain completely went away after about 7 days, and I had this overwhelming energy every day. I was like motivation to record videos, because every day I would, as soon as I woke up, I'd drink my bulletproof coffee with I would record a 10-minute video explaining my experience and my thoughts. And it was like suddenly I had my life given back to me. And so anyway, I started lifting. Like I had the overwhelming urge to start hitting new records on my lifting after about 7 days, because I had so much fucking energy and motivation, and my pains went away. So the doctor told me it'd take me 3 months to start lifting again. I was doing Olympic weightlifting, and it was an upper lower split. So I train basically 6 days a week, and I rotate between like an upper push, like pressing, like bench pressing and overhead pressing, and then clean and jerk, snatch, and pull-ups, basically. So anyway, immediately when I started lifting and I started hitting PRs on this ketogenic protocol, I was clean and jerk. I started off clean and jerking like 185 pounds for a set of 3. I was doing clean and jerks for reps. I know a lot of people are against that, but whatever. So 185 pounds for clean and jerk for a set of 3. After about 2.5 weeks on a ketogenic diet, I was able to clean and jerk 185 pounds for like a set of 9 or something like that. And that's a dramatic improvement. I noticed suddenly I had this top end of like strength endurance. I guess people call it power endurance, but I don't know what you'd call it. All I know is my clean and jerks. Okay, like I know they're the alactic power is what it really is. That's the energy system, but that's the type of exercise. And then I was able to clean and jerk before like 225 for like a set of 1. I was able to clean and jerk 225 for a set of 3. And then 205 for like a set of 5 or some shit like that. So dramatic improvement in my muscular endurance. My snatch also improved. I went from being able to power snatch 185 for like a set of 1. Suddenly I was able to power snatch 185 for a set of 3, I believe it was. So dramatic improvement in a short amount of time. And these are energy systems. These are like movements. The glycolytic system, etc. A clean and jerk for 9 reps. Like that is not supposed to happen when you remove carbs. And you're definitely not supposed to be setting PRs. Another thing that happened is within those 2.5 weeks, I dropped 10, almost 15 pounds of body weight. So I started off at 205 pounds, okay, on day 1. And after 3, maybe 4 weeks, I dropped all the way. Yeah, after 4 weeks, I dropped down to 183. So that is, that's almost, yeah, it's like 20 pounds. So in fact, I never thought about it. So in the first 2 weeks, I dropped down to about 188, like 185, give or take. Oh yeah, that's 20 pounds. So I dropped 20 pounds in about 2.5 weeks. That's crazy. I dropped 20 pounds in about 2.5 weeks. Is that 20 pounds? That's 20 pounds. Yeah, I dropped out 20 pounds in 2.5 weeks, and my clean and jerk and snatch dramatically improved on the higher rep ranges in like 3 weeks. And then um, after about the third week, I remember it was Christmas time, and I had this random wave of like depression. And I don't want to say that this is why, but I do remember I started adding like certain plant foods back into my diet. I think something else happened. I don't remember. And Christmas happened, and then I remember I was going to my family, and I was really scared that the ham was going to kick me out of ketosis because it was like cured with brown sugar. And my mom was like, "No, it's ham. It doesn't have sugar in it." I'm like, "Mom, you need to freaking call the people and see the carb content." She's like, "No, it's ham. I don't need to do that. Ham doesn't have sugar." I'm like, "Mom, when you cure a ham, you use sugar, blah blah blah." So I was so scared of like the 5, maybe even 20 grams of sugar in the ham, like kicking me out of ketosis. So that caused me some issues. But so anyway, yeah. So insomnia completely resolved. I had this endless like energy, like my aerobic capacity for sure improved. It looked like my glycolytic endurance, my ability to exert power for like explosive power, like top range power, like clean and jerks and snatches for multiple reps improved. My recovery improved, sleep improved, mood improved, focus improved. Competed, on like carnivore later on, like a year later, and I wouldn't like. I think if I had trained like sparred more often, I would have been even better. But even without like the best like training methods per se, I did amazing like energy wise. Like it wasn't necessarily a testament to my kickboxing ability, even though I'd say I did way better than my opponent with a couple of mistakes. My energy was there. Like it was a testament that the diet was working. Okay, and it wasn't holding me back. So fast forward to Grappling Industries in January of 2022. Okay, so I within this time, so this is 2022 now. Okay, that we're talking about. Well, it's 2023 now, but like Grappling Industries 2022. I was about 2 months back into ketosis because I had done a bunch of carb experiments in 2021. I competed in jiu-jitsu in 2021 for the first time. And that time I wasn't like keto adapted. I was doing the Paul Saladino, lots of honey, fruit, and meat diet, okay? And probably consuming at least 100 grams of carbs a day, starting every day off with like honey. And I remember for weigh-ins, I did keto, but then I like the day of the fight, because I had to like drop like 10, 20 pounds. Anyway, that fight, I did okay. I did okay. I beat 2 people, and this is my first jiu-jitsu competition. I was not expecting to win anything. I beat my first 2 opponents after standing out in the rain for 3 hours because of COVID protocols. And then I lost in the finals because I basically gave up. Otherwise, I would have won if I really was trying. So I won silver without expecting it. But the thing is, I didn't feel good. I didn't have that same kind of zest and energy that I generally do on keto. I still won silver, but like I didn't feel as good. I remember during training, every single day during training, I felt like crap. I had no energy, could hardly breathe. I just felt sick. That general feeling of sickness that I was talking about before, I had felt for training the whole time. And during that time, I was doing honey and fruit and all this other crap. And I think I was doing white rice during that time too, something like that. And it was the same kind of diet that I had done before I ever went keto. Well, with some carnivore kind of zest at that time, some tweaks, right? It was better than the diet I was following before, but it was just the carbs that were fucking me up, apparently. And I remember after that training camp and that tournament, I made a video talking about how carbs just really don't work for me and all this crap. And I had all sorts of weird comments. I had the carnivore crowd subscribers I had were freaking out at me, telling me you're addicted to carbs. That's why you did it, and blah blah blah. And it's like, nah, I didn't like eating the plates of rice with honey and shit. It didn't taste good, or the plates of rice with like mustard or whatever it was I was eating. It tasted like shit. I was like, it's not because I was addicted to carbs. It's because I was following what I thought was evidence-based practices that would really help me. But they always make me feel like crap. So I tried competing in carbs just to see if that would improve my benefits. Because I follow Renaissance Periodization, evidence-based nutrition people, and they insist that the more volume you have of training, the more carbs you're able to tolerate, the more carbs you need. But I just find carbs just really make me feel sick. So, and that was a testament. I still won silver, you know what I mean? Probably because I'm a healthy person and this and that, and in my mind and stuff, and I was stronger than everyone else. But I felt like I was dying every day. It was terrible, like from a health standpoint. So anyway, let's fast forward to my next keto competition. Grappling Industries, January 2022. Wait, 2022. It was like January 30th or something. There's video footage of me, okay? I won gold. And the whole training camp, I felt amazing, okay? But I had to make some small tweaks for jiu-jitsu. The first month of training camp, I was completely keto. And I was also doing reishi mushroom and a couple other things. I felt good. I felt amazing. Like I had all the benefits of ketosis and everything else. But I had noticed that my top end kind of performance, like when I was facing like a white belt, like I remember this dude that I would say was like my rival, just because I really didn't, anyway, this guy came into my school and he didn't really know much jiu-jitsu, but he was just like really trying as hard as he could to like submit me. And I just remember I didn't have that top-end explosiveness when I really wanted it to choke him out and all this. Now, I was doing intermittent fasting, actually, for about 20 hours, and I was training jiu-jitsu completely fasted. So I think that might have been one reason why this was probably the case. I felt kind of weak the first month, okay? I was fasting for like 20 hours or whatever. I was doing 1 meal a day and keto. So that's probably why I had like the weakness and the lower top end on this performance. But I was mostly doing amazing considering I was fasting almost all day and doing ketosis, right? I was able to submit most people unless they were really like going 100% max effort. Because generally I don't really have to try that much, even if they are going 100% effort, provided I am playing my game and focusing on my technique and staying calm. The calmer I am in comparison to my opponent, usually the quicker I can find a mistake in their game and submit them. So I don't need to be super active, right? But anyway, after about the first month, I just felt like I needed something before jiu-jitsu, right? So I started experimenting with the keto gains approach, where you target about 30 grams of carbohydrate coming from dextrose before training. And so I don't remember exactly what my carb was. I think it was like 15 grams of carbs from honey and 15 grams from dextrose powder. It was something like that. But it changed. I would do like 30 to 50 grams of, like usually about 30 grams of honey about an hour before jiu-jitsu practice, or I would do dextrose. But there was an occasion where I was just really busy that day and I was out with like a friend, and we would stop at the gas station and I just get like a Monster energy drink that has about 30 grams of carbs in it, right? Because I do make those. And so what I found is targeting that small amount of carbs, because I would train jiu-jitsu at 6 p.m. So it was in the evening after training clients, hadn't eaten anything all day. I was completely fasted. And so targeting that little bit, like 30 grams of carbs, and I think a little bit of sodium helps too, an hour before training, or more like 30 minutes before training was much better. Yeah, about 30 minutes. That gave me all the fucking pump or whatever it was that I needed, and I felt on. Like, I felt on. I have found ketosis as a baseline, okay? Especially really deep ketosis, okay? Really deep ketosis where I could taste it in my mouth and where I'm like sweating ketones. I feel on cloud nine. Like, that is God mode, okay? And I know when I'm in ketosis, the more intense I train, the better I feel. This is actually a paradox compared to most people. And so so targeting the 30 grams of carbs before training, I was like on when sparring happened, because we do like usually 5 or 6 5-minute rounds depending on the class. Some of them more, like 8 6-minute rounds on Fridays. I was God mode, and I just come into practice. I had a goal, and I would just submit people. I'd be a beast. I had the most crazy endurance, and I remember on this protocol specifically, it was like 1 month of strict ketosis, then following with 1 month with targeted 30 grams of carbs beforehand. I was able to just like demolish pretty much anyone. And I was a white belt at the time, and I was facing blue belts, and I was able to outlast them. After already doing 3 rounds of sparring, we have the 4th round coming, and they're already tired, and they just can't hang, even if they're in better shape than me. But I just had this endless endurance where I can keep going and going at a high pace with a high energy output. It was amazing. Every day I felt amazing. And so I had the benefits of being in deep ketosis all the time, the insomnia, the fatigue, all of that stuff, just feeling amazing all the time. Like, all of my workout fatigue, soreness problems, insomnia went away, like my sleep was on point. I felt like all of my problems went away. And I could just go forever and ever and feel focused and motivated. But with the little bump of carbs before training, it gave me the circulating blood glucose to be able to hit that high dial no matter what. And the biggest thing is when you do 30 grams of carbs before an intense training session, and I was training twice a day that day. I was doing my weightlifting, strength training in the morning, and then jiu-jitsu at 6 p.m., and I was fasted. When you're fasting, I was doing 1 meal a day. When you're fasting for 20 hours, training twice a day, and you only eat 30 grams of carbs before training. And actually, I think I had some strawberries after training. I had like some low-carb fruits after training, okay? I would not exceed 60 grams of carbs each day. 80 grams of net carbs per day. I'm going to get into that in a bit. I found 80 grams of net carbs total per day is about the threshold where if I eat that consistently, if I eat past that consistently, then I lose the benefits of ketosis. And I'll explain that in a bit. You don't need to completely remove all carbs to stay in ketosis. Ketosis is not necessarily, if you eat carbs one day, then you're completely fucked and then you have to spend another month keto adapting. That is not biology. Anyone who tells you that eating carbs will completely kick you out of ketosis and all this crap, that's not how it works. It's not true. And I'll explain that in a separate video. We'll do a part 2 where I'll explain that. But if you're fasting 1 meal a day, training twice a day, and you've been keto for so long, eating a little bit of carbs around your most intense training session at the end of a freaking 20-hour fast, you are going to burn those carbs immediately. They're going to be used to help recycle glycogen and fuel and to be used for that training session. Because really, it's not until your liver glycogen is fully fueled from exogenous carbohydrate stores, and then you keep eating carbs after it's already fueled, that's when the ketosis is disrupted. But even then, if you go back into on a ketogenic diet or fast the next day and you train again super hard, your body automatically burns all the glycogen in your liver and starts to go back into burning body fat to adipose tissue to create ketones and absorbing those instead. So you go back into ketosis super fast, and you're still in ketosis even if you're eating those carbs. Is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, that was what I was doing, and I won gold. I won gold. I have a video up, a compilation. I'm sure most of y'all have seen that already. I smoked that division. I was 15 pounds lighter than everyone else. I weighed in at 190 pounds, and everyone in my division weighed 205 to 210 pounds because I was competing in the 210-pound division. 15 pounds lighter than everybody. I faced 4 different opponents, and I submitted 2 of them. My very first opponent was, it lasted the whole 5 minutes, but the whole time I dominated him with position and points. I had his back or I had top mount almost the entire time, and I could have submitted him once. Or I could have submitted him like most of the time, but I just stayed on his back most. And pretty much dominate. I submitted the next opponent and then submitted the final opponent and just smashed that division. The guy I submitted in the final round, he had already beaten everybody else. The only person he didn't beat was me. And he said that he had deadlifted like 550 pounds or something like that. So he was way stronger than me, but I destroyed him. They're all way bigger than me. And so the 2 reasons why I won, number 1, I had all the energy in the lab. There's a lot of reasons why. My mentality was just amazing. And I think it wasn't possible for me to have the mentality that I had going into there and the focus and everything if it wasn't for ketosis. If it wasn't for ketosis, I wouldn't have had the energy. I would not have been able to last that entire fight. I demolished it. And I believe I owe it all to my ketogenic protocol I was on. And so that day, all I had was I believe I had my tonic herb coffee in the morning. And then I had timed like 100 milligrams of caffeine with like 3 tablespoons of honey about 3 hours before my match started, something like that. So the timing of the carbs was kind of off, but I did have like 3 tablespoons of honey, which is about maybe 50 grams of carbs, right? But I was in ketosis most of that time. And obviously the 50 grams of honey and the 3 hours beforehand, that is not compared to all my other opponents. The biggest thing is relative to all my other opponents. I was doing 1 meal a day, ketogenic protocol, maybe 50 grams of net carbs from honey. And all of them, I talked to them afterwards. They're eating tacos beforehand. They're on high carb diets. One of them was like literally on a bodybuilding diet, chicken and rice every single day. And it's like, I had way more energy and endurance than them. So, a lot of people, it's funny because like a lot of keto people, they grill me. They're like, oh, you had like honey. You had like fruit. You weren't on a true ketogenic diet. They're completely missing the point. Number 1, I was in ketosis and using mostly ketosis and a tiny bit of blood glucose for these things. The second thing is the amount of carbs I was eating was like at least 25% of what the other people were eating. Okay? Most of these people, they're carb loading the day before. They're eating carbs the entire week before. They're eating carbs all the time. And then the day of the tournament, they think the more carbs, the merrier. And I'm like, and I just destroy them. On a measly 3 tablespoons of honey. And fasting every fucking day of training. So, yeah. All right, so now even deeper into this, okay? So we've already established like whatever. All the benefits I've gone on ketosis, okay? So I have the Muay Thai fight, smashed my opponent who was eating fruit leading into it. Well, I wouldn't say I smashed him, but like I had way more energy and agility and explosiveness and endurance than he did. Even though he is way taller and bigger than me. Then we have about a year later my jiu-jitsu tournament, where my first jiu-jitsu tournament, where I was eating carbs the whole time, just felt sick. And I mean, I won silver, but I noticed I didn't have the same kind of endurance that I normally would have had. I was pretty dead actually after the first match actually, but I still won the second. So the carb fueled training camp for the carb fueled jiu-jitsu that day, I still did decent, but that's just because I'm of the type of athlete I am. That's because but didn't feel good at all. So didn't do so good on the carb fueled jiu-jitsu tournament. And I still won silver, so it's like I'm not like salty because I lost. I won silver, did way better than I expected, but I felt like shit. The whole time I was forcing myself to eat carbs. So that was the carb experiment in 2021. So then 2022, I said I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to see what happens when I do like a ketogenic protocol. And sure enough, I through trial and error, I found just a tiny bit of carbs at the right time. And I smashed the tournament. I smashed my jiu-jitsu tournament on the ketogenic protocol. So one more thing I'll say is, again, I know I was in ketosis because the whole time I was training for Grappling Industries in 2022, my mouth tasted like ketones. And I distinctly remember there was this dude who was like the sister of this girl I kind of dated, who came into my jiu-jitsu practice randomly on a 1 week trial, and he told me I smelt like a barn door. And that's because I think that day, that's because I was smelling like ketones, because that day I had no carbs, and I was really deep into ketosis, and I was probably sweating out ketones. And I think I had taken like a teaspoon of like MCT oil or something. Anyway, and you don't always smell like ketones. This was just, this is an extreme example. But I know I was in ketosis because I smelled like ketones, I tasted like ketones. And I remember my eyes were burning from sweating out ketones. Yeah, people who say, oh, like if you eat carbs, you're not actually doing it right. You're not getting ketosis. Don't listen to them. It's more nuanced than that. I feel like most people, their IQ level is like 50, and that's why they take misinformation and insist that they know the facts. Man, it's so irritating. All right, so after I destroy Grappling Industries on the ketogenic protocol, you would have thought that I would have learned my lesson, because I was like, okay, did a carb diet and competed and didn't feel good at all. Didn't really do as well as I could have, even though I did pretty good and won silver, but I felt like shit the whole time. Then did keto, the complete opposite, and felt the complete opposite. Did amazing, smashed it, felt amazing. Well, so what did I do after I did the Grappling Industries tournament? I started eating more carbs, and I was like, all right, I need more carbs and blah blah blah. And during that time, there's a lot of other things going on in my life that I was working on, and I don't know, it was a new experience, so I was, trying to navigate that. And I started college and stuff, and I just remember I was taking in like tablespoons of honey every morning, and I started adding like 3 tablespoons of honey to my morning coffee every morning, and because I thought that it was going to help me. And over time, I started adding carbs back into my diet, like rice and stuff like that. Partly because some of the people at the gyms at the gym I was training at was telling me that that's what he did and shit. So I started adding like rice back in my diet and honey and stuff. I started trying to do the carb shit, and tried the fruit and honey thing, and like. It was kind of hit or miss. Some days I felt okay. Other days I just felt horrible. I would say the overall, I just never was able to go back to how I was feeling during Grappling Industries. And I remember the rest of 2022, I spent testing out different herb combinations, testing out different diet changes and stuff, trying to go back to how I felt when I was smashing at Grappling Industries. I'm like, and I thought it was the herbs, honestly. So I don't even want to explain how much money I spent on herbs that year. I spent way too much money on herbs trying to get the winning combination. Like, the biohacking nirvana of health thing I talk about all the time. People spending way too much money on herbs and not enough money or time trying to commit to getting your diet on check. So the whole time I knew it had something to do with my diet. But anyway, competed again at IBJJF in July of 2022. And again, it's like I won silver, so I didn't necessarily do too bad. But I had this weird feeling where I was like, I didn't feel right. And I remember going in, I was eating carbs. I was eating rice, I was eating honey, and I even had my little brother take me to a buffet the day before the tournament to carb load. This is July. This was July 2022. This is my next jiu-jitsu tournament. So I carb loaded the day before. We ate a bunch of sushi and rice and stuff, and I had him buy me bananas and honey and all this other stuff to make sure I was ready on tournament day. So I think that morning before the tournament, I ate like a ton of bananas and some honey and this and that. And I just remember feeling off that day. Like I felt really calm, didn't feel nervous, but I didn't feel that motivation, that urgency to choke somebody out. I didn't feel that pumped up focus that I had felt before in Grappling Industries, and that was kind of concerning me. But I was like, I guess that it's better to be calm and not feel nervous or pumped up or excited than it is to feel nervous and excited and jittered or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll just fight calm, But I knew something was off. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was maybe water or salt because I had salt loaded as well, or I had tried doing more salt. I just didn't know what it was. So sure enough, matches start and this and that. So I won silver. And really, I could have still won that match. I did a complete breakdown on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in it, let me know. Maybe I'll link all these videos in the description. I will. I'll try. But if I don't, just leave me a comment and I'll send it to you. But I'll link it to you. But I remember feeling really off, and then and I could have won that match anyway. But I had a singular focus on the exact game plan of how I was going to choke him out. And because I was so focused on plan A, when it wasn't working as easily as I had visualized it the whole time, my mind wasn't open to all of the other options I had in that moment where I could have easily won. And it just messed me all up. And eventually I finally was able to get the takedown that I visualized and get the position I visualized, but little tiny mistakes. It took me about 3 or 4 minutes after defending all of his takedown attempts to finally get in that position. I was like, when the position came, I wasn't able to fully get it perfectly. And so I made a small mistake and then ended up on bottom. And referee penalized me for a illegal grip and all this other crap. And so just whatever. I could have won, but the point I'm trying, even though I wasn't feeling good and all this other crap, the point is I knew something was wrong that day. Something in my body, something energetically, right? And the whole time leading up to that, I was thinking it was the herbs and all this other crap. And no herb combination I tried made me feel the same way I did when I was on a ketogenic protocol. And so yeah, won silver in Grappling Industries, but didn't, won gold in Grappling Industries, won silver in IBJJF, but didn't feel that amazing energy and all that other shit in that focus in IBJJF. And so what I realize now is the secret for me is the ketogenic protocol. And basically in this video, what I'm trying to get across is I have experimented both ways. And what I have found is predominantly ketogenic most of the day, most of the time, but only using carbs sparingly for very, for the hardest training sessions or for certain circumstances. And I know for sure that I could eat, a cup of strawberries after jiu-jitsu practice and still be fine. I could do, 30, maybe 50 grams of carbs from like dextrose powder or honey before a training session after a long fast and do berries afterwards and be fine. But it's when I chronically consume honey in the morning, oranges, just over 80 grams of carbs per day that my athletic performance suffers, and mostly because my physical health suffers, okay? But I don't need that much carbs, if I need carbs at all. So anyway, this video has been long enough. I would highly recommend you read this book, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance by Dr. Stephen Phinney and Jeff Volok. What I want y'all to understand. So I'm going to make a separate video explaining the mechanisms of ketogenesis and why all of these things probably happen for me, why I feel godlike and amazing on a ketogenic protocol, and why I feel like shit on carbs. Because you need to know the molecular mechanisms. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there that makes you think that all of this crap doesn't make any sense. But I can make sense of it now. And I'll make a video explaining that. So the lowdown on the mechanisms of why this probably happened, what we'll go into detail in the next video, is number one, you don't need to eat carbs to produce glycogen and glucose. So studies have actually shown, first of all, after about 6 weeks or more on a ketogenic diet, your body becomes more and more adapted to not only burning body fat for energy, but utilizing ketones and fatty acids for energy. So your body becomes more efficient at burning and utilizing more fat to fuel greater and greater intensities of exercise. And studies from Jeff Volok and Stephen Phinney have shown athletes that are keto adapted for longer than 18 weeks, and we're talking elite level athletes, they start to produce double the amount of energy per minute from fatty acids. I think the data showed on average the high carb athletes burn at the most 1 gram of fat per minute to fuel training. The fat adapted athletes burn 2 grams of fat per minute for exercise, or utilize 2 grams of fat per minute per exercise. There's like 2 times the efficiency of utilizing fatty acids for energy when you're fat adapted. That's the first thing. The second thing is studies actually show when you're carb adapted, so the high carb elite level athletes, they were only able to oxidize fatty acids for energy at something up to like 75% of their VO2 max, something like that. After about 80% of VO2 max, it's carb adapted athletes are utilizing almost exclusively glucose and glycogen. Whereas a fat adapted athletes, the keto adapted athletes that have been adapted for longer than 18 weeks, we're talking elite level athletes, they're able to beta oxidize fatty acids for energy at intensities over 92% of their VO2 max. And so what this shows is, if you have ever had a personal training certification or a science education on sports, you'll always see these graphs that say carbohydrates can only be used for aerobic, low-intensity activity. But the fact is, those studies that showed that were done on carb-adapted athletes that have been eating carbs their entire life. That's only true if you're adapted to eating carbs. But when you have actually gone the long keto-adapted process, your body actually produces way more energy from fatty acids and can fuel much greater intensities of training from fatty acids the longer and longer you stay low carb. Most of these studies that are used to go against low carb performance are short-term studies. So, and there's a whole bunch of other benefits too. Your body can actually produce up to like 400 grams of carbohydrates from endogenous sources. So that means glucose, glycogen, it can be created from free fatty acids, from the glycerol backbone of triglycerides, from the Cori cycle, as well as some amino acids can also convert. And this is a demand-driven process. When you are on a ketogenic protocol, your body will only produce the amount of carbohydrates and glucose that it needs. It's not going to just turn protein to chocolate cake. It doesn't just turn protein into glucose by supply. It only creates glucose from demand, for when you create a demand for it. And I think that's also why training at the same time as keto adapting makes the process faster. I think I have such better benefits on keto than other people because I actually trained hard while, like, the whole week I'm keto adapting. So I keto adapt faster because your body has to adapt to utilizing ketones for energy for your training. And it doesn't do that if you just take a break. So anyway, I'll make a whole video explaining that deeper. And so let me know if that's something you're interested in. And I'll talk to y'all. And there's also anti-inflammatory benefits and all sorts of other things. So we'll get into that in the next video. Peace.